All right, gentlemen, welcome to another MediaTek Q&A with Solar Integrated Roofing Corporation. This time we have some very special guests with us today. Joseph Loud, Senior Vice President of Commercial Sales and Finance, along with Mr. Kip Callaway of Callaway Farms, one of the major projects that Solar Integrated Roofing Corporation has been working on in their commercial division. Gentlemen, how are you this afternoon?
Good, thank you.
I'm great. If I was any better, I'd be Kip.
All right. So, just to start things off, give us a little bit of an overview, kind of what Callaway Farms does, who you guys are, um, and how you're working with Solar Integrated Roofing Corporation.
I'll take just a minute to do that. As he said, my name's Kip Calaway. We primarily, myself and my family, were raised in the Columbia Basin Project in Washington State, and we have been farming. We're fourth generation farmers. Um, we developed a lot of ground in the Columbia Basin, broke it out of sagebrush, put in irrigation systems, and developed a lot of farmland for irrigable ground. Our main business that came from that in the early to mid 70s was we began to export forage products to the Orient, and this has been a core of our business in the ag industry, in the forage industry, and in sending forages around the world, mainly to Asia, and it's starting to go into other places in the world like the Middle East and other countries in that area. A big part of this is alfalfa, as many of you know. That's a popular forage in the forage market, and there's a very high demand for it globally. We've been in the market and produced many tons of it. This farm came available down there years ago, and we were looking for more real estate to for an exportable product, and so we started working on this product, and we're introduced to Circ through a law firm where my son happens to work. He represents the Circ organization and put us together, and we just started putting our heads together and decided to take a good hard look at this project, and we went from there. Our main background is ag and development, and we've developed thousands of acres of ground and put irrigation systems in with water supply and power supply. This is a little less conventional, but it makes it all that more exciting.
Tell them how
That's
much
us.
the utility company wanted to charge to bring good old-fashioned power out to the site.
Just to get the power to the site, not including power delivered around the site, was 50 million.
My goodness.
My goodness. Yeah, it's a chunk of money.
I think the utility company kind of quoted you a real long time, too. They basically said, you can pay us to come out there, and then you can pay us full freight for the electricity once we do get out there, and maybe we'll get around to it at some point in the next decade or so.
Yeah, they basically told us it was 3 years just to get it on the board, and then from then it was anybody's guess how long. It's not an easy process because of the size of the project.
So now that gives some understanding of, why the solutions put forth by Circ are going to be so beneficial, to Callaway Farms when the alternative is having a standard utility at a cost of 50 million and a lead time of 3 years, if you're lucky. Probably much more knowing the speed of, government and utilities, but now it's, abundantly clear why, this solution is so beneficial for you.
Yes, just to add to that too, Elijah, if you take the power to get it to the real estate, by the time you get all the easements that you would have to run power lines across, who knows how many properties, it could be 10 or 15 years before you get this deal done.
Yeah, of course. And then easements definitely take a long delay.
A
So now
long
we
time.
know, yeah,
And then
absolutely.
you're stuck with a finished product from an energy perspective that still has a highly variable cost that you can't really count on. I mean, we've seen around the world energy rates just go through the roof, and in certain parts of Texas, for example, just in this past year, energy rates have gone up by 70%. And if you think of electricity as the thing that is being used to grow the crop, and you don't know what that feedstock is going to cost you, or if that number keeps moving around and then they keep adding more and more demand charges and things like that onto the bill, you can go from being a profitable farm to one that's upside down. And so energy infrastructure that you ultimately get to own eventually is where this industry is heading. And we're going to prove it in the agricultural space, but the implications are far reaching for plenty of other applications to have your own islanded energy grid with a fixed cost over time that you can relate to a levelized cost of energy that eventually gets paid off. It's like owning a house versus renting.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That brings us into now that everyone I think has a solid understanding of who Callaway Farms is and what they do and why they're working with Circ. Let's get into a question. How is the project being funded?
I'll take that one. So projects like this are funded with a combination of sponsor equity, tax equity, and either preferred equity or debt. So in this case, Circ and Callaway are working together to co-develop the project, and both of our companies are acting as sponsors, contributing equity both in the form of cash and in the form of sweat equity by completing various scopes of work related to the project that a pure independent power producer that's not also a developer would have to compensate third parties to complete. So as far as the sponsor equity, that's coming from Circ and Callaway as a team. Much of the overall cost of the microgrid will also qualify for tax incentives in the form of federal tax credits and depreciation. Starting in 2023, due to the recent rule change that's part of the new Inflation Reduction Act, some or all of those federal tax credits that the project qualifies for can actually be turned into cash via a one-time transfer to a third party in exchange for cash. So we can actually sell the tax credits to an outside party now, starting in 2023, without taking that party on as a partner in the project company, which is new. And ultimately, we plan on doing that to add to the capital stack what you would normally think of as the down payment needed to finance any sort of income producing property, which is what we're creating here. The remainder of the capital stack for the project and for this project and others like it will come in the form of preferred equity or debt, with the respective investors or lenders being in first lien position in much the same way that a mortgage company does when you obtain financing to buy a home or an income property. It's important to note that the lending decisions made on income properties like this one are based on the income approach to valuation. So this means that the credit that's being relied upon by the preferred equity or debt provider rolls up to the party or parties who will be paying for the electricity, and in this case, also the parties who will be paying for the crops that the farm will yield. And Callaway is bringing a lot of value to the project on this front as well.
Interesting. So from what I'm hearing, it sounds like this isn't a project that's just being fronted solely by Circ. This is a project that Circ and Callaway are, both have significant skin in the game in terms of how the project is being funded. Is that accurate?
So yes, we both have skin in the game, but in a perfect world, most, if not all of the overall cost of the project can be funded using structured financing, right? And, one of the things that got me excited about this industry as opposed to traditional real estate and commercial income property is that this new asset class in the commercial real estate or income property arena, i.e., energy infrastructure that generates revenue, and in this case tied to improving property that didn't have utilities and now will. All of this is financeable using traditional means of banking and preferred equity relationships. But when you add the value of the tax incentives to the picture, you can actually get what ultimately usually has to come out of your pocket as cash for down payment in trade for those tax incentives. Or if you're a company that's paying a lot of taxes because you're being very successful, as Circ will continue to be, and as Callaway will continue to be down the road, as we proliferate more sites and projects like these, we'll literally be able to talk about sort of left pocket, right pocket with regard to money that we would normally have to be paying out in taxes that can actually now be used towards what otherwise would be down payments needed for the project. So, you get to a point where with the right kind of financing structure, a lot of these projects can be funded 100%, and the company can make money developing them and building them out at the same time.
So everybody wins.
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah, we're building money machines at Circ.
All right. And how far along has the project progressed? What milestones have been met or missed at this point?
So we have achieved site control, which is the first critical component in any project like this. We have the land under contract with the help of with our friends, and we've actually spent the entire summer completing a highly detailed, collaborative, and expertly created front-end engineering and design document that's gone through at least 5 iterations over the last several months. That's now completed. Really building out all of the components of the project on paper and with detailed drawings and schematics and plans, some engineering work, even some 3D renderings and flyovers that we've had done to build this project out on the drafting table and in our design software. We've also completed our economic and engineering feasibility report. That's been paid for and completed. The relationship with our all-important off-taker has been secured and is going through a process of becoming contracted. And funding requests with multiple suitors have been made, and the approval, negotiation, and selection process there is ongoing.
Awesome. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what an off-taker is and what their function is in the process?
Yeah, in a normal energy infrastructure project, the off-taker is the party or the parties that are going to be paying for the electricity that's being generated, right? So if we were building a solar system on a school, then the school itself or the municipality that runs it would be the off-taker. They would be the ones contracting for the purchase of the electricity. In this new sort of energy agriculture combo situation we find ourselves in, where we're building a microgrid, but we're also at the same time working with Callaway to build and develop out this farming operation. The farming operation derives the revenue that it needs to pay for the electricity and other costs associated with running the farm from the sale of the forage that's being grown. And so in this case, there's another off-taker for the agricultural effort and the yield that the farm will have. So we have been able to rely upon Callaway to bring, in this case, both parts of the offtake to this project.
Perfect. Very solid and detailed explanation of that. Moving on to the next question. After this project is successful, how many other properties do you plan to roll this out to?
That's probably the biggest thing that intrigues us about this relationship and this idea, and that is that it's not very often you can go out in the middle of the desert where there's water and have power I mean, we as a society, I believe, take it for granted that the amount of power it takes to run these farms and to generate the crops that everybody reaps the benefit of in, you know, your Costco or what have you. And so what this does is that this makes it to where you can go anywhere in the world, and if there's water and good sunlight and that you can generate the power in those situations, then you can make it farmable, irrigable ground with that electricity. And that there are other areas that we are looking at. I'm not at liberty to where those are, but there's areas that have many opportunities to utilize this technology that we're working on. This is revolutionary. You know, if the thing that intrigues me about Circ is that, you know, when you're first to the game on something like this, you own it because you understand it. You've made alliances with people that understand what you're trying to accomplish, and you've been able to put things together to where you understand what the concept is. You know, when you go do a big project like this, there's a lot of things you need to know, and I believe that Circ and ourselves together, through our collaboration, have come up with a pretty good design on how this is going to work. I mean, I look at it and I just think this is amazing because I just know of areas where this could be utilized. And it's not just in the United States; it's on a global scale. I'm talking countries that are starving or maybe starving, and you could go in there and you could develop something to help them feed their people. It's really exciting.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Kip's saying, you know, to answer your question, we want to do this in as many places as possible. And we came together in person when Circ was having a leadership alignment meeting a few months ago in Las Vegas. I got a chance to meet with Kip in person. Me and some of the other executives from Circ and AED, and also some of the other folks from the Callaway operation. And what came to the fore was that really we have two organizations that are looking at what we're doing together as something that we want to roll out as a team on a go-forward basis, with Circ focusing on the energy and Callaway focusing on the agriculture. And you know, we both connected on the fact that, you know, we want to change the way that both energy and agriculture are handled and sustained here in the U.S. and around the world. And leaders of both companies said to each other, you know, in all seriousness, that what we intend on doing here is leaving a legacy that will last long after we've hung up our work boots and hard hats to become day traders.
That's extremely impressive to understand the scope of, you know, what you guys are looking at. I mean, there's very few businesses globally that are bigger than agriculture. You know, everyone's got to eat, and you know, especially in this day and age when it seems like the price of all food is ballooning through the roof. Is this something you believe may, if it's widely adopted, may contribute to a decrease in the cost of food, you know, through a decrease in the overhead?
Kip has a much better
I
global view
believe that
on.
I believe that the food issue globally is bigger than what the your normal media channels would bring to our attention. Um, if you take in the Western United States right now on forage products for animals, and these aren't scare tactics I'm throwing out there. This is just the way it is. The USDA is averaging 1.5 to 2 million tons of shortage, meaning we didn't produce that much material as we produced last year on the forage market. Those are big numbers. And so when you take that into perspective, you know, prices right now are really high. And with the way things are, I think they're going to go higher. And as we all know from economics, the way that you bring down price is increase supply. So if we can increase supply and increase productivity from ground that doesn't have power but has the ability to irrigate and to cultivate, you're going to see some changes. You'll see less dependency on certain areas, and other areas will fill the gaps. As the population grows, your food's not going to come down unless we produce more.
And certainly being able to bring power to, areas that previously did not have power, increasing farmable, available land throughout the world is, increases supply and in turn lowers prices. So I would say, the answer for the implications of a project like this is, much bigger than I think everyone may actually understand at first. So I
There's
think,
a lot of places that are farming on pure diesel right now, right, Kip?
Yeah, and that's the most inefficient way to farm is diesel.
yeah,
I mean,
So
when you think about what you're paying for when you buy a tomato, I mean, you're not really paying for the seed or the tomato. You're paying for the energy that it costs to create it and ship it and hold on to it until you bought it.
yeah,
So
of
bring
course,
down the energy costs, bring down the food costs.
absolutely. All right, next question. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's a little bit of a different type of a question. Are there other projects or scopes of work that Callaway is interested in using Circ for, or is it just this microgrid initiative?
microgrid right now is our main focus. Whenever you're developing anything, there's a learning curve, and we want to make sure that before we go do anything else, we know of projects out there that will benefit from this. But you never want to show up and overcommit and underdeliver, because then you're dead in the water. So we want to do this project, and we sit here and we talk about the project, and we say, yeah, the project, we're going to build this microgrid out on this farm. But if any one of us went out there and drove out there and saw the scope of it, you'd almost think, how are they going to do it? Because it's big, and it's going to take some time to do this, and it's 100% possible. But we want to do it right. We don't want to do anything halfway. We want it to work and work well. So, but yeah, once this thing's up and running, I mean, watch out.
Perfect. What relationships does Callaway have with other agribusiness that may influence you to use this microgrid project as a reference?
We deal with one of our contracts or with one of the largest import export companies in the Middle East. They are our main partner. And so they are a global farming operation, and we do a lot of business with them. They're very aware of this project, and they're excited about what it can do around the globe. They're
So,
watching it very close.
so the other company, I presume that the company in the Middle East that you deal with, that's one of your biggest partners, they have other farms that they deal with. I would assume that you would think they would be able to, recommend a project like this if it turns out to be as revolutionary as it seems like it's going to be.
100%. They're watching it. We talk
Perfect.
about it all the time.
All right. We move on to our next question. Have any of the Callaway owners or managers purchased Circ stock in the open market, or do they otherwise own any shares?
We do not. That doesn't mean we won't buy any shares. It's just we don't have any shares in the company.
All right. Simple, straightforward answer. Next one is a little bit more elaborate. Are these technologies being developed between Callaway and Circ? Would companies be able to use these for future business, or is one company the sole owner of the technology? And can you elaborate on some of the technologies being developed?
I'll take that one, Joe.
Yeah. What's that?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, I do. So our plan is to work together as a team, like I said, and as Kip alluded to complete this first project. And through that process, we are looking to perfect our approach, continue to innovate as we go, right? Because you learn a lot as you take it from the drafting table out into the field. And then our plan is to take our show on the road together as Enter Ag co-developers, offering others the expertise and the practical know-how that they desire on both fronts, energy and agriculture, which we believe is going to be particularly timely and a useful combination and value proposition that not many others that we know of are planning to offer as a combination. So I do think that what we're developing here is something that other businesses are going to be able to benefit from. Frankly, I also believe that there will be applications outside of agriculture that will similarly be able to benefit from microgrids, islanded grids, off-grid renewables. One of the only big things that's holding back renewable energy in general is the fact that in most cases and in most applications to date, we've had to integrate the systems with existing old-fashioned grids. And the long tail item on our commercial projects is the interconnection application process. I mean, there's markets in this country that have some of the most lucrative solar markets, and you can't get a project through the interconnection stages. You end up in endless cluster studies and bureaucracy. And frankly, you're going to ask permission to your principal competitor to build your system. We'd like to thank the legacy grid, for getting us this far. And then we'd like to go ahead and move into the direction of distributed generation. Our company aims to be the complete alternative energy solutions provider and a distributed generation utility company that's larger than any other one in the world. And there's no borders, and there's no reason why we can't take really beautiful, pristine, and in other cases, arid and not very desirable, but inexpensive land and develop it into all sorts of things. Because where you have energy, you can have anything else that you desire. And as far as the technologies that we're utilizing, we're really just using a combination of existing commercially available technologies and best practices to create an efficient and sustainable off-grid ecosystem that we're all going to be very, very proud of. I'm not going to get into the specific architecture and have it blasted all around at this stage. I don't think that's going to be good for us or our shareholders. But we promised the Callaways not to bring some science fair project, but rather use good old-fashioned experience with technologies that are put together in the right combination to solve the problem at hand at the lowest cost and in the most sustainable way that we could figure out.
Sounds like everything is proceeding very well. Quick question that I didn't actually get to, but it's a pretty basic one, and it looks like it was asked a little bit after. How much power will this project generate in kilowatts when all is said and done?
It's gonna be close to 30 million kilowatt hours per year.
30 million kilowatt hours per year. That's a simple question with a simple answer. Kip, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the scope of it is, it's a large project. And when you think, as a farmer, you think about horsepower and how much horsepower it takes. And so you just look at the amount of horsepower. You take 30 million kilowatts. That's just an immense amount of horsepower. And you can see how, I guess what I want everybody to understand is to put food on the table, what we're proposing and doing out there is so revolutionary. I just can't put enough emphasis on that. And I want to talk a little bit about Joe Loud, too, and his group, and that when we had that meeting in Las Vegas and we talked about leaving a legacy, it wasn't just a legacy of, here, grandkids, look what we did, look what we're able to build. It was a legacy of, hey, let's change this and let's make it to where, people can do this and that have an interest in agriculture, that there's options. right now for a young kid coming out of college to start farming, he either A, has to be born into it or he has to inherit it. And that there's just something wrong with that because it's a great life and it's a great way to live and it's fun. And so I think this not only opens up opportunities for more production, but I think it also opens up opportunities. Some of that ground that Joe was talking about, that arid ground, that maybe there's somebody somewhere that wants to farm, that this design will make it to where people can farm that want to farm. Um, when you get the control of everything in few hands, you run into problems. And so that I think this helps us develop that in that it spreads out and keeps the family farm going and keeps things growing in that direction to where those options are available in the country and worldwide. I'm impressed with Joe's team. I mean, when we met and we talked about these things and some of the guys that were with him, there's a passion here, and it's just really nice to be part of something where these people have passion about agriculture and how we can produce. Because, as many of you know, to produce is a hard thing to do anymore because you always feel like you're up against it. And it's just hard to get things going. And so when something like this comes on where we can have production again in the country and develop new things and develop better technology to help us feed people, it's very exciting. It's very exciting to be a part of it. And I do it every day. But on this level and on this new technology, I'm in awe at what we're going to be able to accomplish.
Well, and if somebody with your experience and your perspective on the agricultural industry is excited, is this excited, I can only imagine the benefit that this is going to have in, not only increasing the supply and the availability of food, but also making the agricultural industry more accessible, which it sounds like is one of your goals in general.
Absolutely.
We couldn't have come close to figuring this out without the expertise that Callaway brings to the table. I mean, they're real scientists when it comes to this stuff. I mean, they know their numbers cold, and it's been a real great opportunity for us to learn how many crossovers there are between agriculture and energy. I mean, we really are all farming the sun at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Another quick, simple question that looks like came in after the deadline. Shouldn't be too tough. When is construction expected to begin, and how long do you believe it will take to complete?
I believe if all goes to plan, we're going to be able to start with the first of 8 planned phases of the some 6,000 acres of property that we're developing together. I believe in the first quarter of this upcoming year, if all goes to plan. The nice thing about the site that we're on, that Callaway's found, is that there's not the normal long drawn out process to be able to start working on the site once you've got your plan and once you've got your funding in place. And so really, we aim to get all that stuff figured out and get our equipment ordered and start arriving to do some of the main components of the central brain of the microgrid system have to be built in the first phase, and then there are planned 8 clusters of 4 crop areas. I guess you call them circles, sections. Right? Sections, and each of these sections is about 125 acres of land under pivot, and so there's 4 of those circles in each cluster and 8 clusters. And I think the overall project to take it from beginning to end and all 8 phases, probably a good year and a half, maybe 2 years, depends on what happens as we go and supply chain and things like that. But I'd like to think that we can get it done within about a year and a half. What do you think, Kip?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good timeline. I think for a project of this scale and size, I'd imagine I certainly, was envisioning when you were explaining that the traditional power companies, were going to take on the order of 3 to 10 years. I was envisioning something, on a longer time scale, but it seems like this may be up and running a bit sooner than people might think.
Yeah, we're excited about the downstream development opportunities that will come by way of referral once we've proven the concept. I don't think that some of the folks that are watching are going to need to see us complete all eight sections to want to start developing their sites. So I think there'll be quite a development effort ongoing on some other sites as this one's finishing out its construction. So, that's why we have our company broken up into multiple divisions, because as our development division wraps up, our project management and construction division gets going, and then the development division can move on to the next project. And after a while, Circ isn't living month to month or quarter to quarter, but we're dropping years and years worth of revenue for a normal company into the bucket with every single project. And guys, for what it's worth, if I were you, I would hang on, to this ride that we're about to take with Circ, because from my vantage point, which is a unique one, we've got quite a few really cool projects like this that are underway.
That's going to be music to people's ears. Any plans for patents on this when things are all said and done?
Yeah, I think anything that we can protect as intellectual property as a group, we're going to want to do that. Sources and methods, those are things that are tradecraft that you can, in some cases, patent, and I think we're gonna do everything we can to maintain enterprise value for Callaway and Circ, and for our shareholders.
All right. Joe, anything else you want to add? Looks like we finished up the list of questions. Or you, Kip?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Callaway and his family for being such great partners.
Awesome. Kip, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I feel the same way about Joe's group and Circ. They've been really good to work with. I just can't emphasize enough, and it's because of my knowledge of the ag industry, of how revolutionary this is and cutting edge. It's very exciting. A lot of times I always joke with my kids, they portray farmers as guys that wear overalls and chew on a piece of straw. Well, if that's what you think this deal is, it's not. It's very sophisticated, and it's very, very time consuming, and there's a lot of effort being put into it to make it work. A lot of back and forth between us and Circ, and coming to an understanding of how it needs to work. They're great to work with. They really are. I'm excited about the future globally with this technology.
Awesome. All right, gentlemen, anything you would like to add, or think about covered it?
I think that's it.
I'd like to thank you for hosting this. I think it's very valuable for us to be able to speak to our fans. And Brad Reinhardt said he's buying at Soggy Bottoms.
There you go. My pleasure. Always glad to do our best to bring shareholders all the best information about the company. Joe, Kip, thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful afternoon and evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, sir.
All right.